Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're getting into something really important. We're asking why our education system, which, let's be honest, was designed for a world that just doesn't exist anymore, feels like it's failing our kids. And, what's next? What does learning look like in this new intelligence age?
So, let's start with a number. 98%. What if I told you that 98% of a group of kids tested at the genius level for a skill that is absolutely critical for the future? Go ahead, take a guess what that skill might be. Okay, so that number, it comes from this really famous study that George Land did for NASA, of all places. He found that at 5 years old, a staggering 98% of children are basically creative geniuses. But then, you fast forward 10 years. By the time they're 15, after a decade in school, that number just nosedives to 12%. So what on earth happens in those 10 years? Well, mostly school happens.
And that huge drop in creativity? It's not a mistake. It's actually a feature, not a bug, of a system that was designed for a totally different time. We're talking about the factory model school, a system literally built for an era that's long gone.
So you might be asking, how did we get stuck with this? Well, the whole system we have now was basically born in 19th century Prussia and then perfected during the Industrial Revolution. And back then, factory owners weren't looking for the next Steve Jobs. They needed, and this is a direct quote, a punctual, docile workforce. So schools were literally engineered to crank out exactly that.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The bells telling you when to move, the desks all lined up in rows, kind of like a production line. There's one single authority figure at the front of the room. And maybe worst of all, mistakes are punished, right? The real goal was never about sparking creativity. It was about creating compliance and obedience. Making people into good, interchangeable parts for the industrial machine.
And this brings us right back to George Land, the guy who did that creativity study. His conclusion was simple and honestly, kind of chilling. He said, non-creative behavior is learned. In other words, our schools, by their very design, have been systematically educating us out of our own natural creativity.
So you can see how this old design creates a massive problem for us today. We're now smack in the middle of what's called the 21st century skills gap. And the problem is simple. What our economy is screaming for is the exact opposite of what our schools are teaching.
For example, the World Economic Forum, in their Future of Jobs report, says the two most important skills for the workforce of tomorrow are, number one, analytical thinking, and, you guessed it, number two, creative thinking. The very thing our factory model schools were built to stamp out is now one of our most valuable assets. Kind of ironic, right?
And things are changing. Fast. Get this number. 44%. The World Economic Forum projects that's how much of an average worker's core skills are going to have to be updated in just the next 5 years. Lifelong learning isn't some fluffy, nice-to-have anymore. It's a straight-up economic necessity.
And just look at this disconnect. It's wild. On one side, you've got the skills the future actually needs. Things like creativity, curiosity, resilience. And then on the other side, you see how our traditional schools treat them. Low priority, very low priority, or sometimes they're not even on the radar. The system actively punishes the kind of risk-taking and failure that you need to build resilience. It's just a fundamental mismatch.
Okay, so if the old model is broken, what's the fix? Well, before we even get to the tech, we need a whole new philosophy. We have to reclaim a skill that is just so core to being human, and that's learning through stories.
The historian Yuval Noah Harari makes this brilliant point. He says the reason humans dominate the planet isn't because we're the strongest, but because we can cooperate by believing in shared fictions, these incredibly powerful stories like nations or money or laws. I mean, you can't touch them, but we all agree they're real. And when you think about it like that, it completely changes the purpose of education.
So the goal of education shouldn't just be about memorizing facts anymore. It should be about building what you could call narrative competence. That's the ability to see and deconstruct the big stories that shape our world. And, this is the most important part, to write our own new, better stories.
So that's the new philosophy. But what's the tool that actually makes this possible on a large scale? Well, this is where technology, and specifically AI, comes into the picture. AI can finally be the personalized tutor that lets us break the old factory model and shift learning from a one-to-many broadcast to a true one-to-one conversation.
I mean, AI really holds the key to shattering that one-size-fits-all classroom. It can build personalized learning paths for every single student. It can act as a 24/7 tutor, giving instant feedback. It can even use data to spot students who might be struggling. And all of this frees up our amazing teachers from endless grading so they can focus on what humans do best: mentoring, inspiring, and coaching.
But, and this is a huge but, how we build these AI tools leads to a critical choice. Are we going to build a cognitive crutch, an AI that just spoon-feeds students the right answer, which actually makes their own thinking skills weaker? Or are we going to build an intelligence amplifier, an AI that responds with thought-provoking questions, sparking real curiosity and much deeper learning? The design choice here is everything.
And of course, we can't just roll this out without some serious ethical guardrails. That means always keeping a human in the loop. It means actively fighting the biases that can be baked into algorithms. It means rock-solid privacy for student data and demanding transparency so we know how these systems work. The bottom line is, AI has to assist, not replace our incredible human teachers.
Okay, so let's pull all these ideas together and look at a new vision for what learning could be. It's a vision that marks this really clear shift away from a culture of compliance and towards a culture of genuine curiosity.
This brings us to the new goal of education. It's not about the passive transfer of information anymore. It's about the active development of what you could call dispositions. We're talking about cultivating those core attitudes, like curiosity, resilience, adaptability, all the things you need to actually thrive in a super complex world.
And you know, this isn't just a theory. There are platforms like CuriaMinds that are already building this new architecture right now. They're weaving together narrative-driven learning. They have an AI co-learner named Ella, with dashboards that empower teachers and new ways to assess progress that go way beyond a simple score on a test. When you put it all together, what you're seeing is a total paradigm shift. We're moving from a passive, one-size-fits-all system where the goal is compliance to a personalized, interactive model where the outcome is creativity. And in this new world, the teacher evolves from being a knowledge dispenser into being a true learning architect. At the end of the day, the goal itself has changed. We're not just preparing students for standardized survival in a world that's predictable. The new and absolutely essential mission is to equip them for lifelong thriving in a world that is defined by constant, unpredictable change. But as we build this new future, Yuval Noah Harari leaves us with one last, really profound warning. He says that AI has done something no other technology in history has ever done before. It has hacked language. It has hacked the very operating system of human civilization. And that leads him to his final, haunting question for all of us. As we start building this AI-driven future, we have to ask ourselves, are we ready to live inside the dreams and fantasies of an alien intelligence? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining The Explainer.